Then we get to the Philadelphia Eagles and Tampa Bay Buccaneers game. And the Philadelphia Eagles try to do something that has never been done, not to my knowledge at least, in the history of the NFL. And that is a team literally stumble into the playoffs, flip a switch, and win the Super Bowl. Another thing I talk about a lot on this podcast is tendencies. And the fact that a team builds tendencies all season. And it's very hard to build tendencies the majority of the season and then try to flip it or try to switch it towards or at the playoffs. It's almost impossible. And the Philadelphia 76ers this season might be have to. I've never seen a team collapse the way that they've collapsed. Which is why you're seeing think pieces on how. Because a team that in the same calendar year, or no, last calendar year, was playing in the Super Bowl and had a lead in the Super Bowl. Also, you start this season, you go on, you have a 10-1 record. You go from that to ultimately losing 7 of your last 6 games, including losing to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 32-9. A team, unless there's a major injury, which there really wasn't. Unless there's a major injury, that doesn't happen to teams unless there's something wrong internal. Now, granted, 10-1, they were 10-1, but they weren't destroying people. They weren't dominating people. The one thing that was their calling card in that 10-1 record is they were finding ways to win. Whether that was comeback wins, and they had wins against good opponents like the Kansas City Chiefs, like the Miami Dolphins, like the Cowboys, like the Buffalo Bills. Quality wins, playoff wins, or playoff team wins. So to go from that to 1-7 in your last 6 games, with no major injury, means there has to be something internal. But a lot of people was holding on to that hope. And a lot of people couldn't come to the fact of the 1-6 going to the playoffs. Eagles, what was the same Eagles, or 1-5 or 1-6, one of those two. That was the Eagles that we had instead of the 10-1. The collapse happened. It happened. It was so hard to fathom that the Eagles team that we saw against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers was the same Eagles team that was 10-1. Almost impossible to fathom. But that was the truth. When you looked at this game, let me go back to the Green Bay Packers and Dallas game for a second. When Dallas was getting dominated, because they were getting dominated, there was a sense of, there was shock, obviously, but there was a sense of, well, I could see it. I could see this happening, seeing as though, obviously, in the moment, not before, obviously, but in the moment, it's like, well, we did overlook how good this Green Bay Packers offense has been. We did overlook how great Matt LaFleur has been as a coach going into the playoffs. So maybe that was more on us. But watching this Eagles team get dismantled by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Let me first remind you guys something. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers literally stumbled, or they had to fight and claw their way to get into the playoffs. They're 9-8, meaning they just got in. We have lamented all season about how poor and how bad the NFC South was, and how the NFC South, no team should really, if the format was different, obviously, there shouldn't be a team in the NFC South that make the playoffs. But here we are. So the fact that an NFC South team that even struggled to get in the playoffs dominated the team that was just in the Super Bowl is saying something. Now, I hear a lot, Super Bowl hangover, which is true. Super Bowl hangover, that is proof at this point that there is a Super Bowl hangover for both the winners and the losers. But this is different, which is why it's very hard to discuss this, because obviously us outside the locker room don't know what happened, but something had to have happened. Because there's no way that this Eagles team was the same team that was 10-1 this season. But let's discuss this Eagles team that we saw. That 1-5, 1-6 record coming into the playoffs was them. Their defense has struggled mightily all season. They couldn't stop a soul majority of the season, but it was really paramount the end of the season. They fired their defensive coordinator mid-season and replaced him with Matt Patricia. He didn't really make much of a difference, and I think that's also because it's very hard to learn a new system literally at the end of the season. A lot of the people that they depended on, whether that's Bradbury, whether that's Boyd, they were bad. They couldn't stop the run to save their life. Even with Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter, they couldn't stop the run at all. This team wasn't good. Jalen Hurts was, I will say that I do think Jalen Hurts played hurt majority of the year. And I think that definitely played a part in the offense kind of sputtering, but it just looks like there was a disconnect with this. Watching this team, it looked like you were watching a fractured team. It looked like you were watching a team that did not want to play with each other. Oh, man, you stayed to the end of the video. I appreciate you. If you like what you saw, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you'll never miss any content from your boy. You can also go back and watch past episodes, past clips, and don't forget that the Unpopular Podcast, new episodes drop every Wednesday and Saturday. Appreciate you.